Our next question, we will start with candidate Rice. As one of 125 Kansas House Representatives, how will you work with others to accomplish your goals in Topeka?
You know, as I look at that, I'm really excited about that. Over the years, I have developed a relationship with people across the state. You know, I've got to know legislators from not only the area but across the state. You know, I've been associated with different groups and associations, and you know, I've caught a little flack from it, but I've even got some endorsements from some groups across the state. That doesn't necessarily mean that I believe everything they believe, but you know, in every one of those little groups, there's some bit of good that could come from that. So I look forward to working with those folks, with the folks that sent me the PAC money. You know, if I can work with them, but I'm a long ways from giving up my principles and my soul. I'm not going to sell out. But I think there's a valuable lesson to be learned there that I can work with those folks, and that's exactly what I want to do.
All right, Candidate Francis.
Could you repeat the question?
As one of 125 Kansas House Representatives, how will you work with others to accomplish your goals in Topeka?
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to earn their respect. I will be the best prepared representative at every committee hearing I go to. I think any of the commissioners that have served with me, the staff at the county, all remember the fact that I was always well prepared and I knew what the issues were.
All right, 30 seconds to rebut. Candidate Rice.
I'll pass.
Candidate Francis.
You know, I'd just like to add that you don't get to be president of the Kansas Association of Counties because they don't respect you. And I do think I can earn that respect. I think I can work with others across the state and help us move forward. We have to have a positive vision for the future.
Thank you, Candidate Francis. All right, our next question, and we will start with Candidate Francis. This one was emailed into the chamber. Education makes up a large share of the state budget. How would you hold the educational system accountable for its expenditures?
You know, this recent increase in education spending was all swallowed up by CAPERS. There's some charts out there that says that the rising cost of the retirement for our government employees is swallowing it all up. So I'm not sure that they're getting flooded with all of the dollars that we think they are, especially in certain districts. But one of my problems is I think we need to get back to the basics on education, and we do have to have accountability. But I think we can have accountability at the local level as long as we understand what the standards are. A fourth grader in Liberal, Kansas needs to know the same thing as a fourth grader in Las Vegas, New Mexico. You thought I was going to say Nevada, didn't you? So we've got to get back to the basics. We need to let our educators focus on education, and this accountability thing, I think, sometimes has went too far. My kids go from test to test to test.
Thank you, Candidate Francis. Candidate Rice.
I think that accountability gets back to what I said originally, going through those state budgets. I think it's important that those be taken a serious look at, go through them line item by line item. You know, I know that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but I believe probably in the long run, the success rate will be great. There will be some savings to be made. Perhaps there needed to be some, you know, other areas that need more funding than others. You know, a real concern I have, the way things are now, the courts and the judges are making the decisions on school funding. And I disagree with that a great deal because I believe that funding should be decided by the school boards, the local school board folks, and the state legislators, and the court system shouldn't have anything to do with that funding.
Thank you, Candidate Rice. Candidate Francis, 30 seconds.
You know, when we talk about accountability also, I think, what is accountability? You know, if you're Shawnee Mission West in Johnson County, maybe it's really easy to hit accountability. When you're Liberal, Kansas, and part of your class is Somalian, part of your class is first-generation immigrants where the mom has a second-grade education. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what accountability really is.
Thank you, Candidate Francis. Candidate Rice, 30 seconds.
Pass.
All right, thank you. Our next question, we will start with Candidate Rice. This one was just called into the chamber office. What could you, as a legislator, do to help with ag commodity sales? What could you, as a legislator, do to help with ag commodity sales?
Well, I think that's a tough question. Anyway, yeah, you know, I don't know. One of the things that I think is important, and there's probably some folks out here that don't agree with me, but I think the legislation pending in the federal government is cool. That's country of origin labeling. And I happen to believe for the American farmer and rancher that is a very, very important tool. Because think about it when you go to the grocery store, when you go to Dillon's. If it had a stamp on there that said produced in Argentina, and right next to it, it has a label that says produced in the USA, which one of those would you pick? So, you know, right now, the packers don't like that.
It's time, Candidate Rice.
They can mix.
Candidate Francis.
You know, I agree 100% with Jim. I think sometimes we forgot that the government exists for our benefit. You know, it should be American first. That doesn't mean it applies to everything, but, you know, especially with our agricultural products, and there's a lot of other things like steel, it's America first. When we go back, though, to this other question, and I'm sure this isn't what the asker was trying to get, one of the things we can do for commodity sales in this area is try to increase the basis. The ethanol plant did a lot to increase the corn basis in this area. As we bring in more dairies to this area, we can increase the basis that our farmers receive for the sale of their products. And maybe that doesn't go directly, but that was one of the things I liked about the ethanol plant. If we get 10 cents a bushel more for our corn because there's more demand here, that's a huge economic impact to this community.
Candidate Rice, you now have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
I'll pass.
Candidate Francis, you have 30 more seconds. Both candidates pass. All right, our next question, and I do believe we start with Candidate Francis. Are you pro-life in all instances? Are you pro-life in all instances?
You know, I'm not sure. I think if you're very, very, very pro-life, I guess the question probably says at conception. I guess that would be the interpretation of that. Yeah, I'm pro-life. I've got 2 daughters right here. I pray to God that they never have to be in a situation where they make that choice. And this community is an extremely strong pro-life community. And I promise you, I'm your representative, and I will vote pro-life all the time.
Candidate Rice.
I would say absolutely.
All right, we can restart the timer. Candidate Francis, 30 seconds if you choose.
No more.
All right. I guess you're good, Candidate Rice?
I'm absolutely good.
All right, thank you. All right, our next question will be for Candidate Rice to start. If elected, how long would you want to serve in Topeka? Candidate Rice.
You know, my main concern is getting elected to start with. But, you know, after that, you know, I really don't have a limitation on that. You know, I mentioned before that, you know, I thought 2 terms on the commission, which was 8 years, was plenty enough. You know, but as far as the state legislature, you know, I don't know that it would be 8 years, but, you know, I would certainly be up to more than 1 term.
Thank you, Candidate Rice. Candidate Francis.
You know, you have to get reelected. That's the most important part of that deal. Really, I think we need to elect somebody that can be up here to impact the next Highway 54 transportation plan. It's 6 years before this one is up. They'll start their planning in 2020. That's the biggest reason I want to get up there. I'm tired of Highway 54 not being finished. I think we can do some smart things like they did in Oklahoma with the expressways. You know, if I can get Highway 54 to Liberal, maybe I have to just live with getting it to Mullinville. But, you know, that's my game plan, is build seniority so you can affect that highway transportation plan.
Candidate Rice, you have 30 seconds.
Say that question one more time.
If elected, how long would you want to serve in Topeka?
Oh, all right, told you I'm up for more than one term.
Okay. Candidate Francis, you have 30 more seconds. All right, both candidates pass. Our next question, and I believe we start with candidate Francis on this question. It is a two-part question. As a legislator, how do you plan to advocate for mental health needs for Kansans? And what can legislators do to decrease the stigma of mental health treatment? Candidate Francis.
Public education. I mean, that's what we all need to understand. I have a theory, and it may not be right, but society is hard. We all have pressures with our jobs and everything, and I think many of the people in our society that aren't effective, that don't perform at the level that they can be successful, have mental health issues. And I think we have to fund it. I think we have to have research. Mental health affects everybody. I think many people that are drug addicts, for instance, they're self-medicating. There's been some research on that. And we need to address these problems. We need to not just stick our head in the sand and pretend that they're not here. The world is a very difficult place. Some of us can get through it, and some of us struggle, and we need to help those that are less fortunate than us.
Thank you, Candidate Francis. Candidate Rice.
Read that question one more time.
All right, it is a two-part question. As a legislator, how do you plan to advocate for mental health needs for Kansans, and what can legislators do to decrease the stigma of mental health treatment?
Okay. I think mental health is a very important aspect that needs, some attention. In the past, it's been really easy for the legislature to cut that budget. And as you look around the country with all the shootings that have gone on in these different schools and theaters and that kind of thing, and most every one of those individuals had some serious mental problems. If there had been a program and some funding behind that to help those individuals, that might not have happened. So, as far as advocating with that, I think, it's very important that we do that, and I would certainly be in support of working on some kind of a program and some kind of assistance to far improve what we have now.
Thank you, Candidate Rice. Candidate Francis, 30 more seconds if you choose. Candidate Francis passes. Candidate Rice, 30 more seconds if you choose.
Fine.
He will pass. All right, so once again, I would like to remind our audience that you can submit questions for our candidates by calling 624-3855 or by emailing brenda@liberalkschamber.com. Also, our audience present tonight in the depot can submit written questions by asking one of our legislative committee members for a note card, write your question on it, and turn it in. No personal attack questions will be allowed. This next question, and we will start, looks like, with candidate Rice. There is a shortage of housing in rural Kansas and in southwest Kansas. What have you done, or what could you do to stimulate housing growth?
One of the exciting things I think was, and I actually have been to the governor's office and submitted some ideas and suggestions for him earlier this year. But, something that we weren't aware of, I guess, here in Seward County is we had several lots that had been acquired by the county through, non-payment of taxes. And there was about, 80-some lots sitting down there and had been for some 15 years of absolutely no value to the community. Once we figured that out and found that out, we made someone an offer, or they made us an offer, I guess, and we accepted it. And now then, those vacant lots are going to start producing houses with tax revenue on it. Another important aspect, I think, was I worked on that self-help housing project with the city. I think that was the greatest program I ever seen in my life. That was put on through USDA, and anytime you can get government to do something good, you're doing fine.
Candidate Francis.
I think most of you know that I know quite a bit about housing in rural Kansas. I've built over 90 houses for this community, primarily for low and moderate income families throughout my career. At this time, we're currently building 5 houses next to a light park. We're in negotiations and still trying to figure out how to do a 48-unit moderate income apartment complex. It's very difficult to do moderate income because there's a lack of government assistance on that. That's why you see so many apartments that are Section 8, because there's strong federal and state programs that help those. Currently, the state does have a moderate income multifamily program that we're using. I think we have to keep doing that. The city's done a great job with the RHID. I got to hurry up, Joe, don't I? And I'll get that in my follow-up.
Candidate Rice, 30 seconds.
To continue the rest of my story, what I submitted to the governor was the possibility of looking into these other communities statewide. Other county governments that might have those acquired lots to build houses on. If there's a lot of them there, I think that's a great opportunity to sell low-priced lots for encouragement to developers.
Thank you, Candidate Rice. Candidate Francis, 30 seconds.
The problem with a lot of that is the appraised value. But the RHID that the city has done is great. The 5 houses we're building, we'll probably write checks to close those. But the RHID is going to allow us to recoup some of our costs. So it's really hard to do this. I know everybody thinks it looks easy, but if you'll notice, not very many people are doing it. And that's why, because there's not much money in it.
Thank you, Candidate Francis.